Chair Baldwin. Before I turn to my questions, I'm going to make a few comments. First, I want to thank each of you for your extraordinary work. In my judgment, there is no investment that pays greater dividends to American families than our investment in biomedical research. And that is why I've been such a strong supporter of NIH, and I will continue to be one. And I think we're very fortunate that all of those who are on this committee share that view, including the chair and the vice chair of this subcommittee. That is why I am puzzled at the flat funding for Alzheimer's research. We have made real investments to help the 6.7 million Americans age 65 and older who are currently living with the Alzheimer's and those who care for them. And we know that this number is on a trajectory to double by 2060. Alzheimer's is also one of our nation's most costly diseases, and it's one of the leading causes of deaths among seniors. As a senator representing the oldest state in the nation, this is of particular concern to me. And as a person who lost her father, her grandfather, and 2 uncles to this devastating disease, I know personally what this means to American families. So I hope that we can correct the flat funding and continue the trajectory that we have been on. Now, let me turn to my question. First, Dr. Hodes, I want to commend the National Institute of Aging. You have been essential in your institute in sustaining the progress that we have been making. And we've seen an exciting new class of treatments, one announced just yesterday that is similar to another that has been approved under the accelerated process of FDA that could delay or slow the onset of Alzheimer's symptoms. In a statement last year following the release of phase 3 lecanemab data, NIH said, although NIH did not fund this study, our decades of research paved the way for this Alzheimer's trial that notably met its primary and secondary endpoints. I agree. And that's why I'm so frustrated that these new therapies based on sound science approved by the FDA are not reaching patients because of CMS's inexplicable determination that they are not reasonable and necessary for seniors. And here's my real concern. While this is being finally sorted out, it is so sad because these treatments are most effective when they're given early, when people are in the early stages of Alzheimer's. So the patients who would benefit the most are not receiving access to this medication. Dr. Hodes, in your view, what would broader access now to these disease-modifying therapies mean for patients?
Well, I thank you for the question. And of course, FDA and CMS have their regulatory authorities that are distinct from NIH. But from an NIH perspective, as you've said, the therapies that have become available now are the clear outcome result of research supported by NIH. In fact, lecanemab, one of the drugs, is now being studied in 3 trials directly funded by NIA, one of which, for example, is treating individuals before any symptoms, or an even earlier stage than before, a so-called secondary prevention trial. Through these, we're trying to work for exposure to more diverse populations. And in terms of what this could mean to the public, we are preparing for when final FDA approvals and CMS coverage occurs, to do what we can to monitor and ensure that we understand in populations that are diverse, rural, urban, racial, ethnic, which are likely to differ in just which treatment, at what time is best, that we have the infrastructure and the trials in place to optimize their impact on society. This is the next stage, having first found successful interventions to learn from these first leads and to optimize them. So I agree with you, the impact on the broad population can be huge, and it's our research commitment to make sure that we are prepared to assess this.
Thank you. Dr. Vulgar, I am very concerned about the widespread use of extremely potent cannabis by our young people whose brains are still developing. NIH research has sought to better understand the relationship between marijuana use and psychiatric disorders. Given recent trends in recreational cannabis use and increased potency, is more research needed to better understand the short and long-term effects of cannabis use on mental health? And is NIH or its grantees investigating cannabis-induced psychosis?
Thanks very much for the question. And yes, indeed, we are very concerned about the increased use of cannabis with very high content of THC, and also by the increase in regular use. So what we're seeing in the United States is an increase in the number of people that are using cannabis regularly at very high doses. This is particularly important because it is the high doses that are associated with psychosis. And research, it's a very important area of research to try to understand under what conditions the use of marijuana can result in psychosis, and importantly, chronic psychosis. So yes, we are prioritizing this as an area of research to try to unequivocally determine if there's a causal link between the use of cannabis and psychosis. Researchers are also investigating the potential role that cannabis use can have in suicidal behavior. So we need to understand what may be consequence or not of the use of cannabis, but from what we know, we should be concerned and certainly be monitoring the trends.
Thank you.
Senator Durbin.